Hi everyone and welcome back to Purposive Communication class. So today we're going to be dealing with one of the topics in purposive communication, which is about the verbal and nonverbal communication. So verbal and nonverbal communication is one of the topics of purposive communication, since this one still entails with the how we communicate to people and also for us to be an effective communicator of the language, particularly not only in English but also in other languages. So let's move on. So we do have two types of communication, and those are the verbal communication and the nonverbal communication. So I know you know what you mean by verbal and nonverbal using what you have learned in speech and oral communication, but we still need to define those things so that it will really help you to remember about it. So when we talk about verbal communication, this is more of the spoken and written one. When we try to communicate. Well, when we talk about nonverbal communication, this is basically more of what we see to people when trying to communicate. And nonverbal communication is basically so helpful for us to convey the meaning and to really look into to be an effective communicator. So let's move on. So what do you mean by verbal communication? Verbal communication is classified as three: oral communication, written communication, and media communication. And all of them tries to use language or words. And basically, these are our tool when we try to communicate with people using our voices, using those words and all. So let's move on. Well, the other type of communication in terms of speech communication is the nonverbal communication. As what I have told you, nonverbal communication is more of this is more of examining how messages are communicated through the following: the physical behavior, the vocal cues, and spatial or spatial relationships. Okay, so let's move on. So we do have different categories of communication, nonverbal communication particularly. But before we do with that, we try to look into the importance first of nonverbal communication. As what I have told you, nonverbal communication really helps a lot in terms of making meaning to our words and also to our written words. So basically, when we try to use effective nonverbal strategies or nonverbal communication, it helps us to really convey what we want to say. Okay? So let's move on. So we do have different categories of nonverbal communication. So these are the ways on how we try to convey our message and to really, be consistent of what we say through our bodily language. Okay, through what we show them. Okay, so that is what you mean by categories of nonverbal communication. So let's have first later on. So these are the categories: the kinesics, more of movement; oculesics, more of eye movement; proxemics, more of this is about the space; haptics, more of this is more of touching; and then we do have also chronemics, more of time; vocalization, more of voices; objectics, more of what we see, more of objects like that; and the paralinguist, more of voices also. But later on, we will try to differentiate them. And we have also another category of nonverbal communication, which is about the environmental factors and physical appearance. So let's start with the first category, which is about the kinesics. So when we talk about kinesics, from the word kinetic, so kinetic is more of movement. So when we talk about kinesics, these are more of gestures. So how do you convey meaning? Through gestures, and that is kinesics. Kinesics helps you to really give meaning through your facial expression, hand gestures, head movement, and posture. That is kinesics. So next one is oculesics. Oculesics is basically more of how you try to utilize your eyes and eye movement to communicate. So this helps you to really look into the sincerity of what you say to the one that you're talking. So that's oculesics, from the word ocular, more of eyes. Next one is proxemics. So from proxemics is related and has from the root word proximity, that really talks about space. So this is how the person uses space and distance to communicate. So basically more of looking into how the people try to use space and distance in terms of looking into their relationship, and not only with that but also looking into making meaning of what they wanted to. And later on we'll try to give an example of that one more. Okay, so let's move on to haptics. Haptics is basically more of the use of uh, touching. So we try to express ourselves by expressing our feelings by touching behavior or ranging of feelings. Okay, so that is what you mean by haptics, using the sense of touch in making meaning. Next one is chronemics. Chronemics is basically more of the use of time. This is a study of how we refer to structure, perceive, and react to communicate. There are several ways on how we can show, interpret, and value time. This can be expressed through by punctuality, willingness to wait, speed of speech, and even the length of time a person can listen. So this is basically more of the speed of time. The value of time we try to put into, and also in terms of the culture itself. So there are other countries that they are really, going into the value of time. That when you talk about if the situation is like from the other country like Japan and all, they're very particular with time, that if the program was the time of the program indicated was 7:30, really they need to have 7:30. But unlike us, we do have what we call Filipino time yan. So what do you mean by Filipino time? Filipino time is like connoted with being late. So that's Filipino time. So again, we try to look into the value of time in terms of how we try to express ourselves and also interpret also. So the next one is about objectives. Objectives is basically more of using physical objects to communicate. The use of physical objects in communication in an office may indicate status, nameplates, and signs, and may indicate position. So also not only that, but the way you look, it's under still of objectives. So we try to look into the physical objects that surround us and try to make an interpretation or making meaning out of it. So that's objectives. Okay. So when we try, of course, like for example, you're wearing something like simple dress or whatsoever, and you're at your house. It shows how what position do you have into the society. So it's the same thing with trying to look into like in the verbal language. When we try to look into the form of words and all, we try to understand and identify what kind of people are they. But here when we talk about objectives, we try to look into how people look, and therefore we try to define them. We try to define these people. What kind of people are they? Okay, so that is objectives. Next one is the paralinguist or paralanguage. So paralanguage is basically more of referring to the tone of voice, the volume, the tempo, the resonance, the rhythm, the inflection, the pitch, the nasality, and even accent. So basically, this is how we try to look into the how we try. How this type of people or these people try to put or we can classify them already. What type of people are they? So, for example, if the Bisaya are talking like into that pitch, therefore we can identify what kind of people are they. So the regional dialects, the nasality, and even the accent. So again, paralinguist or paralanguage is basically more of another type of nonverbal language wherein we try to identify what kind of people are they in terms of those things, the tone of voices. So next one, under also linguist or paralanguage is like the voice set, wherein the context is which the speaker is speaking. This is influenced by the situation, the gender, the mood, the age, or even the speaker's cultural background. The one's voice, volume, tempo, resonance, rhythm, inflection, pitch, nasality, and even accent. So we try to look into the voice set as where the speaker is speaking. Of course, when I'm trying to talk to my friends, I have a different type of pitch. and a different type of accent. But when I try to really go with what's this? When I try to look into and then try to talk to my students, of course, I have a different accent too. So with that, we try to look into what type of communication are surrounding in it, and therefore we try to make meaning in terms and interpretation of it. So that is paralinguist or paralanguage. Another also here at paralinguist or paralanguage is the voice quality. Voice quality, this refers to the factors like volume, pitch, tempo, rhythm, and these factors gives an individual's voice a unique voice print. So I have a different kind of voice. Other people have a different kind of voice too. So voice quality, when we are just listening on it, trying to look at it, and all. So that is paralinguist in terms of voice quality. And we try to determine, I mean, what type of people, categories of people are they. Okay. Next one is the vocalization. The vocalization is basically more of involving the characterization of people, qualifiers, and segregators. Characterizers are basically we try to put language into emotions that are expressing like speaking, smiling, frowning, or yawning. So we have a different type of voice when we try to show that one. So that's under vocalization. Another is the voice qualifiers. Voice qualifiers refers to the style of delivering a message. In Arab culture, for example, speaking loudly connotes sincerity, whereas in North America, it is interpreted as aggressiveness. So in short, the voice interprets what kind of culture are you, and therefore, what type of feedback are we going into, and therefore, what type of interpretation are we going to be dealing with the message that they want to uh, give using their vocalization or voice qualifiers. So in short, they don't create misinterpretation because looking into their vocalization, their characterization, and also of course the voice qualifiers, we will eventually gonna be looking into what meaning is he trying to imply to us. So the next one is the vocal segregators. Segregators are like fillers that we try to put so that we try to notify that the speaker is listening to, the listener is listening to the speaker. So the examples of that are the the and the oo. So these fillers sometimes are not good for the others when we try to present into a speaking situation, or like when we try to answer in a Q&A in a beauty pageant. But however, vocal segregators are very helpful in terms of putting disturbance to people whenever we wanted to think first before saying the word itself, and saying the sentence itself, and saying what we mean. Um, with the vocal segregators or like fillers and all, we try to look into that we are still, indicators that we are still listening to them and will still answer their question. And that's still under nonverbal languages because they try to make meaning. Okay? So another type of nonverbal language is the environmental factors. Environmental factors are basically more of what you see around you, and it speaks also what kind of communication are surrounding with it. Okay, so the environmental factors are the following: the color, the lighting, the room size, the noise level, ventilation, windows, furniture that affect communication. These environmental factors really helps in terms of making meaning, and also of course the barrier itself also, it hinders the effective communication. Okay, so that's environmental factors. And not only with that, but you can already interpret what is the context of speaking already when you see the environmental factors. Of course, when you are like into the church and all, you don't expect people that they are really speaking with one another, because one of the rule that when you are in the church, basically you need to be quiet, and of course you need to be like really praying, because that is what is expected into the situation or context. So again, that's environmental factors, and it helps a lot in terms of what communication are you going to use, how are you going to interpret it, and also what language are you going to be dealing with it. Okay, so that's nonverbal, and that's still under classification or category of nonverbal communication. Next one is the physical appearance. Physical appearance is basically more of how people dress themselves, communicate something, as clothing as powerful communicator. So the difference of that one with objectics is basically more of, this is just more of objects itself. However, dress can be an object also, but here in physical appearance, they are very particular with your costume itself. So it creates also already your status in life, and not only that, but also you try to look into not only status, but also you try to look into what is the skill of people, and not also with that, but also you try to look into also the belief of people when you try to see the appearance of that person. However, they have what we call quote about, don't judge don't judge by the book by its cover. But if you're gonna be looking at it, really, the physical appearance helps people to judge what is the context of why is he speaking like that, why is why is it that that's their way of speaking. And also if you're into the church, that is how you need to look. So basically more of the appropriateness of the person itself, not also with that, but also the type of how you communicate with people. So physical appearance really helps a lot in terms of communicating what you mean. Leads to, can be a barrier also with the other people, especially if the person is not like looking poor and all. So if they're like looking poor, other people will judge you that you can't speak up for yourself and like that, and therefore they try to belittle with you. They try to belittle you or whatsoever. So again, physical appearance is really something, especially now in the millennial era or digital era. So but that it doesn't mean that it justifies who they are. So that is what you mean by physical appearance as one of the category of nonverbal cues. So that would be all, everyone, for the categories of nonverbal communication and how they help in terms of communicating, effective communication to people. So again, nonverbal strategies are very effective if you try to utilize it in a appropriate manner, and therefore it will really help you a lot in terms of giving meaning and no barrier, and putting meaning into your words. So that would be all, everyone. Thank you so much.